Oh, we have in the audience, right? Okay, here we are with Jewish Jeopardy. Now, Jewish Jeopardy was originally not a game. Now it is a game. Okay, we do have prizes for those who can answer the questions correctly. Let's understand what Jeopardy is and where we're going with this really quickly. Jeopardy. I don't know if anybody's ever watched Jeopardy. Has anybody watched Jeopardy? Great.
Yeah, David and I are junkies.
Okay, so you what?
Yeah, we're Jeopardy junkies.
Jeopardy junkies. Wow, that's why you came here, because you wanted Jeopardy junkie. So Jeopardy, from what I remember watching with Alex Trebek and all those wonderful things that go on with it, is the ultimate game of trivia. Mm-hmm. With a twist, of course. The twist is that you have to... How do I say it? Give the question, right? You have to give the question. I give the answer, you give me the question. So let's just practice for 1 second here. Okay? You ready? So, the belief that God dictated the Torah. That would be the answer.
What is Orthodox Judaism?
Beautiful. You would get that first point. Okay? Oh,
I can just sit back.
You can just sit back and relax right now. The belief that Mashiach is going to come quickly nowadays.
What is Orthodox Judaism?
No. That would be
It's
wrong.
one of the 13 principles.
One of the 13 principles of the Rambam. Correct. So that's what would happen. So now, what is really Jeopardy trying to create? And their new tagline, actually, never stop questioning. Never stop questioning. That's really, and I have to thank you for that, because you were driving, Laura was driving on the highway, and we came up with highway, right? Yeah. She was Jeopardy, and the original one was a game show with a twist, something like that. And then she was walking, and she saw the flashing thing. Whoever advertises Jeopardy today on the highway, I don't know. I never saw that sign, but she did. And it said, never stop questioning. And that's when it became the tagline on our thing. But that's really what's going on. They get you in the questioning mode. And it's something very important to do, because of all of Judaism, the biggest thing we'd start doing is asking questions. If you don't ask questions, then you're not doing your job. When you look at Chumash, it says, Bereishis bara Elokim et hashamayim va'aretz, and in the beginning Hashem created the heavens and the earth. Well, it seems like a very simple line, right? In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Let's go on with life, and so on and so forth. That Rashi is the longest Rashi that you can imagine. It goes through a page and a half of what those 6 words mean. More than that, Maimonides goes at length. On that first simple 6 words, you have probably 7 pages of explanations of why this is happening, why God has to start the Torah with the words Bereishis bara Elokim et hashamayim va'aretz, and so on and so forth. You have a simple thing of when Avram goes to Egypt, and he says to his wife, or about his wife, she is my sister. Again, everybody goes crazy. What are you talking about, sister? Okay, or even better, after that whole thing is done, when Yitzchak says something about Rivka to Avimelech. Now, let's assume that it's the same Avimelech for argument's sake. Well, let's say it's his grandson, his son. I don't care who it is. 60 years later, we remember the Holocaust. 60 years is not such a long time in history. And so when he hears, I'm just saying 60 years. I'm just picking on 60 years.
Longer than 60 years?
No, 60 years. 60 years. How do I know 60 years? Yeah. Because he was born, he had a child when he was 60 years old. Right? So he had a child. Yitzchak had a child when he was 60 years old. So it's a little over 60 years old. That's all. You're looking at 70 years, maybe. Okay, again, people may have good memories. And what happens when he comes to Avimelech and they ask, who's the cute girl? And he says, my sister. Now, the truth is, if you think about it, he's 70. She's all of... Let's go with the real pshat of Das Kanem. She got married when she was 14. So add a couple more years to that. No, it's not so. She has 2 young kids. Make her 24. Make her 25. Doesn't matter.
Got married when he was 40. So
No, he got married when he was 40. Oh, right, 40. So he make it 20 years older. So 34 make her. 34, right? 34. So you have a 70-year-old with a 34-year-old with 2 kids. And he says, my sister. I could hear it. It's such a strange thing. The husband's away, he ran away, did what he wanted, whatever. And you could hear it. I don't think there's such a far-fetched thing. What does Avimelech do? He learned his lesson. He stands back. He waits. He watches. He sees that they're really acting as husband and wife. Then he accuses and says, what did you do? Right? So, but all that going through, the question is, why did he say she's my sister? What happened to your bitachon? Especially when you have a treaty. Your father has a standing treaty with this guy for 3 generations. Why did you do that? You should have said, Avimelech, she's my wife and I have a treaty with you, so I know you're not going to be a wicked guy. Or I had it with your father. My father had it with your father. Respect it. No, nothing like that. I thought that you were going to kill me.
It was the password.
It's a pastor. She's my sister. Okay. But the point is, the rabbis are asking why. How did this happen? Again, never stop questioning. We're not supposed to look at the Torah. We're not supposed to look at the Gemara. God also is supposed to look at the Gemara and just say, no problem. We're supposed to constantly ask and ask and ask. Like in Daf, yeah. Even, by the way, in all defense of Daf Yomi, which I think that while we all love to do it, I think, who was the one who started it? Rev Meir, what's his name? Meir Shapiro of Lublin. I think, I don't know, if I may be wrong when I'm saying this, but that's my theory. When he said Daf Yomi, I think he was saying, spend the day on the Daf. Learn the Daf well. I don't know. You don't know either. You have it written down? I know what the program is, but I'm saying I don't think he meant to do it like we're doing it. I don't think he did. I don't. Not to discuss. Not the point. So okay, let's go on. I'm just saying. I don't think it was. But what was going on is we have to learn when you have a midrash, the famous midrash that. Oh, I'll give you the other. Let me do it the Jeopardy way. He jumped 10 amos high and hit his enemy in the ankle.
Who's that? Yeah.
No. Who was Moshe Rabbeinu? And who was his enemy? Oh, King of Melech Bashan. Now, when you look at that midrash, it says Moshe was 10 amos tall, which would make him approximately 20 feet tall. I'm giving rough things. Okay? He jumped another 10 amos, which would get him at...
40 feet.
No.
What did you say,
He was 10 amos.
Which is 20 feet.
Oh, 20, oh, I'm sorry. Right, 40 feet. We'll get him 40 feet, and he was only at the ankle of Og, who was...
He was the axe. Then
His
he-
axe,
then he
excuse
was
me.
10 amos. It was 60 amos. So
Right.
30 amos.
Okay, there you go. All those amos. And this giant is 300 amos. It's amazing what this guy was. Now, when we look at that, do we just take it at face value and say, okay, that's what it was? And Zehu, and leave it alone? And the answer is, of course not. The Rambam, Avraham, the Rambam's son, Avraham, Rav Avraham, said you cannot look at Midrashim and just say, He said some of them are meant to be taken literally, and some of them are meant to be taken figuratively, and it's up to us, and following our Rebbeim, to know what's really behind what's being said. Okay, yeah.
Do we have a tradition, an oral tradition of which ones are literal and which ones are not? So then how do we, you said it's up to our Rebbeim to tell, well, how do they know?
No, they had it. They certainly, I mean, just by looking at it, you're going to know certain things. Mm-hmm. Right. So I'll give you an example. Let me get off the old one. When you have, what's his name? Yosef was buried by the Egyptians, right? So where was he buried?
In the river.
Okay, you say in the river. Okay, so now if you go to Mechilta, to Rabbi Yishmael, he'll tell you that he was buried in the catacombs. There's one tradition he was buried in the Nile, and that's the famous one we all know.
Right.
And then the other one's in the catacombs. Well, what was it? It was the catacombs, was it the river? Why is that important? And so on and so forth. Each one has their tradition, so now we have to figure out what's really going on. That's all. Micha, the famous Micha, not your son, not your son.
I know.
Famous Micha, who was put in the wall by, as a baby, he was put into the wall, that's what they called Micha, and because they didn't make enough bricks. He would be the one who Moshe Rabbeinu would pull out, because he said it wasn't fair, that a child should be killed like this, and Hashem is saying, I know what I'm doing. No, he pulls him out. He's the person who will get the piece of metal that says Alei Shor, arise O ox, referring to Yosef that got him either out of the catacombs or out of the Nile, and he's going to throw that into the molten to get the golden calf, and then he's also going to be the one later on. He lives a long time to create outer worship, and that with the trough and so on and so forth, that Moshe's grandson will be brought into in the story of Shoftim. So Micha lasts a long time. Okay, but again, how much of this, where we go with it? So each one of those things has a reason for where they're picking on it. And so our job, and again, that's from the, and we do have sources to explain why each one has its source. And so then it's up to us to use them to try to put something together. But does it really matter if he was buried in this Nile or in the catacombs? Either way, what the Egyptians were trying to do was to hide the body so that we couldn't leave, because we already had, and by the way, that's the why they have to do that at all. What do you care? Because they knew we couldn't leave without taking Yosef with us, because Yosef made us promise that you would take me with you, and we don't leave any body behind to this very day. I mean, think about that. So that would be why all those things are coming together, and then like I say, you have to understand why either the water or why this or why that. Why wasn't his body destroyed? And it says the bones of Reuven were shattered. I mean, it's a whole bunch of midrashim that we have to say, what's really going on? Is it really that the bones were shaking in all those years? What was really happening, and what was spiritually happening, and so on and so forth. So and that's why when I'm looking at it, I can always say, yesterday we heard from Zvi Glocken that when Asa, I'm sorry, I just have a cold, that's why I have to keep thinking what I want to say. When Esav cried, 2 tears came out of his eyes. And the rabbis tell us, because they were sincere tears, that it's the first temple and the second temple. Each tear was for a temple. And that's why they were destroyed. And we all said, very nice drasha. As a rabbi, I like to say, good. I don't think too much about it. I say, right, okay, fine. But somebody who wanted to pick on, not in the shir, they didn't do that, they always pick up afterwards to me, they say, do you really believe that because of 2 tears, the temples were destroyed? By the way, the reason I don't like to answer those questions is because that's what I call an answer said in a question form. Okay, I'm really not interested, it's just a waste of my time. And to the person listening to this, if you really meant it, ask me again. But, it's really not a question you can ever answer, because it was just like, it's incredulous, leave me alone. But the answer would be, if you had to answer it, it would say, of course, there's a reality to what was being said. In other words, this guy was sincere in what he wanted, and any prayer, if you will, I want to get back at that guy. He did something to me, and I'm going to get him back. It's his brother. Okay, so Hashem could say, I hear, and if they're bad, I'm going to use your tears again. I'm going to use that tear that you wanted to bring him down. I'm going to hear your cry. Yeah, I could hear something like that. I could hear using that midrash in that sort of a manner, or even the best midrash I've ever heard. I remember hearing it. It was that Potipera had a daughter, Asnat bat Potipera, who would marry Yitzchak, who would marry Yosef, sorry. And, sorry?
Wasn't really that daughter, it was someone else. She was,
Asnat bat Potipera was who marries Yosef, okay? Then what happens is, the famous question, by the way, is, how could Yosef HaTzadik marry a Goya? Unbelievable. He's marrying, he's a shiksa. What are you doing? For all the people listening, no, I'm not prejudiced, okay? But I'm just using that Yiddish, because that's how it is. How can he marry a non-Jew? Oh, so the Das Canaan. I remember, I smiled because I remember when somebody told me the midrash, I laughed. The midrash that the Das Canaan brings down is that who was this Asna bar Potipera? This is really Dina's Shchen, right? Child. And how do they know that? And why did he marry her? Because she had the amulet that was a half to his. And when he put it together, they realized, oh, that's why they're brother and sister or whatever. And they can get married, relatives, and they can get, yeah, exactly. I heard that and I said, first of all, by the way, there's a Greek, in Greek mythology, there's a story like that. So that was the first thing I was thinking. I was, wow, we are mixing Greek mythology with this too. Which came first? I'm not going to argue. But when I heard that, from the Meshgiach who was telling me, I laughed. I said, come on. So he married a non-Jew. Leave me alone. What are you making up a whole story for? But really, the story is coming to say something was different there. How could, because the question is, how could Yosef HaTzadik, and do all that, and then why should the sons of Ephraim and Manasseh be zoche, be meritorious to have their own tribes after them? Your mother's a non-Jew. When it comes to the other sons, by the way, the Midrash also kicks in there and says they married their half sisters. Okay? So that's how that gets around. And even if you want to say they married, by the way, this is where the Reform movement gets a lot of excitement. Okay? Because if you follow the Siftei Chachamim, before Matan Torah, it followed the father. Always. So the mother didn't really matter as far as yichus would be, as far as genealogy would be. But then again, how would you marry a girl who was steeped in that mucking society? That's the real questions that are underlying in the text, which is why the rabbis go at such extreme.
Maybe there was something unique about her and her
But
search for
the point, okay, it could be like Batya. Could be like Batya, who broke off from her father. Again, that's part of the midrash. She converted, and that's she was against what her father was saying, and she went to the river to go to a mikvah. There's a whole underlying story there. Again, all those things are coming for the same reason, because people will look at this story and saying, "How could this happen? What's going on here?" And the midrash is telling us, filling in the blanks, as it were, to what was going on. I picked on this many times. We like to cookie cutter stories here. Even the story you told, for the answer is why. Where we hear the story, and most of us understand, we want to just get to the end of the story. We're really not interested in the finer points of what should have happened. We all understand this is a quick 30-second thing. We want to get to the punchline. Boom. But what happens is some people listen that story, and they say, but it brings up all these problems. You have problem A, B, C, D, E, like was brought up yesterday. And the easiest way out of that, by the way, is you can't ask an Amaisa. The story happened, leave me alone. I can't help you. Was it wrong? Was it right? I'm not going to argue that. We're only going to cut into the end. But still in all, but that's what we should be doing. We should be asking all those questions. What should we be learning? What should have happened? And that's when you learn. And by the way, there was a guy on the radio in Boston who used to do this. Paul Harvey. Now you know the rest of the story. What he did was he did the research to get you behind the storyline so you would know everything and you would be able to fill in the blanks and you say, now that makes sense. And what the Midrash and everybody and what the Torah is trying to do every single time is to try to get us to that. So now, let's get back to Jeopardy. Like I said, Jeopardy is a game of trivia. I give you a fact, you give me the question. For Judaism, we don't look for trivia. Trivia is irrelevant to us. What do I need trivia for? But we have 3 levels of knowledge. What are the 3 levels? Bina, Chachma, Bina, and Dad, Chabad. There's all the Chabad people going, yes. Okay, Chabad. Chachma, what is Chachma? Come on. Wisdom. What is wisdom? Let's get around to brass tacks here. What is wisdom? Knowing the facts. Trivia. Oh, I know you don't like the word. I know you like the word. But that is what...
Wisdom?
No. Wisdom. I'm talking about from Torah point of view.
Okay.
Chachma is fact.
Okay.
Just the facts, ma'am. I need to know the facts. So think about how we do this in school. I go to every single kid who goes to a day school knows that when Batya went to the river, Vishalach et Amata, and she sent out her Amata, that could be taken, by the way, simply. She sent out her maidservant. Okay, right? And so every kid comes out and says, she sent forth her arm, and her arm expanded out for so many amos. And it finally grabbed the child and brought it. Every child will tell you that. And you know what? We're going to test them on that information. And they're going to get that information. Just the facts, ma'am. Not even an understanding of why the Midrash had to say that. Which is a sad statement, by the way. I'm picking on my school systems for that. They should explain why the Midrash could say either that or give pshat. She sent out her amma, she sent out the woman, and said, bring the baby in, I'm going to bring it up, and that's the end of it. We can ask questions later. But to have every kid say that as a fact, it's not true. It's just not true. It's a wrong fact on top of everything else. And when the kid grows up, they go on to say, Bobby Maisa, leave me alone. And so the whole story is, so everything is a Bobby Maisa. How do I know it's a Bobby Maisa or not? Which is why the Rashbam was so opposed to that. What? Yeah. The Rashbam was so opposed to that. When you look at his, by the way, the Rashbam was so close to Pshat, the simple understanding of the text, unless they have it here, for Bereshis, Noach, he's not in the book. He wrote a Perush on Bereshis and Noach. But it was so close, it would sound like Epicurus to us. They wiped it out. Only now that we have the Kitvei Yad from him did they finally put it back. What? The Rashbam was the Rashi's grandchild. Rashi says, I only come to give pshat. 2/3 of what he says is drash.
Pshat midrash.
What?
It's supposed to be pshat midrash. It's supposed to be pshat midrash.
Right.
The whole thing of Rashi was he figured out which midrash
Right.
was pshat.
Right. But I'm saying he brought all these things down, but it wasn't his grandson, Rashbam, was saying, what'd you do? You didn't do it. You didn't do the job. Pshat is this. So again, when I'm looking at Pshat, which by the way is very dangerous too sometimes, because if I go Pshat on Shir HaShirim, for instance, I'm getting the wrong interpretation altogether. Kahalas, I'm also wrong. So, what? Right. So you have to know when it can be pshat, when you can't be pshat. You know, that's what I'm saying. It's not it's a tightrope to walk. And that's why you get into such problems when we're teaching some of the material. Because we want to get the kids excited and we want to get into it. So we tell them about the arm and how our arm stretched out. I once saw somebody say that and he said, if I would let them see that the arm stretched out, the kids would have nightmares. If you think about it, my arm's going out. What's going on? It's nightmare. It's not like, oh, come here. But, by the way, it's a beautiful explanation. If you think about it, she sent forth her arm, her protection. She sent forth for protection. I'm going to save that baby. So she sent forth to your handmaid. Do what you have to do. Take a dive and bring the kid back, but it's under her protection. That's what a midrash is going to say. It's a beautiful midrash. Not against the midrash. It's part of Chazal. It's part of our tradition. But we have to understand them. And that's again part of, but that's not Chachma. That's already Bina. Understanding. I can have my Chachma. I know what's there. Boom, 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 boom. I ask you, how many commandments from the Torah?
Oh, I didn't listen to the end of the question.
Okay.
I was looking. Oh, I know. Before they.
You heard it here first. How many commandments in the Torah? 10! Oh, no. 10 top of the... Okay. Now I'm going to give you another chance. How many commandments are in the Torah? Not 10 commandments. How many commandments in the Torah? 613. Baruch Hashem. Okay, good.
Don't ask me positive and negative.
Oh, no. I'm going to do that. Okay. Okay. But what I'm saying... Oh, God. That's not for me. Okay. But that's what I'm saying. When it comes to Psha, when it comes to simple things, when it comes to Chachma, those are the Chachma. Now you have the next level is Bina. Okay? And I have to put those things together. Now I have to string 1 to the 2 to the 3 to the 4. And if I don't do that properly, by the way, I'm going to get verblunged too. I'll use Rabbi Lindau's speech from Friday. If I just look in the Shulchan Aruch and I just look at what the rules are for Chalav Yisrael and what I have to do in order to drink it, so I wouldn't go through the whole shir because it was a very beautiful shir, but it was also very long, and I can't do it in 2 seconds. But bottom line is, there's a heter, it's not a heter, it's part of halacha, it's part of the halacha code that we don't really have to worry. I'm not about America. Forget America for a second. In general, if it's not, well, you said davar miyut.
If there isn't anything, if there are no non-kosher animals in the
if there are no non-kosher animals in the area, you don't have to worry about it. So what happens? These two gentlemen went, according to the Aruch HaShulchan, I'm quoting that story, according to the Aruch HaShulchan, the two gentlemen went to have the milk at their local local bar, for you, the local tavern, okay? And they were drinking, the milk was the best milk they ever had, they would love this milk, and they said, there's no non-kosher animals here, so it's good, okay? Long before OU, there's Aruch HaShulchan, long before Hashkacha. Okay? And what happens is they finally say to the guy, what are you putting, this milk is so wonderful, what are you doing? He said, well, it's just milk. And then he said, the only thing is I take fat from the cows and I mix it in. So not only were they having treifus, bas v'chalav, and now they have to tshuva for 1,000 times that they were eating it, okay, and all because they said, well, I looked at Shulchan Aruch and it said this is all I needed. Well, that's Chachma. What happened to the Bina? Expanding out to say what else is going on. I had a person who was on the trail. He was living on the trail. And he was on a fishing trip. From guy. Fishing trip, and he was with people that weren't from. He had to bring his own food. And every single morning, he smelled the eggs that were being cooked on. We have the chef here on the what's it?
Frying pan.
The frying pan. What? Cast iron. Okay, and he smells it every morning, and it's they're cooking the fish they just caught, and he's smelling it and saying, oh, it smells so good. He wants to eat it, and meanwhile he takes out his preserves. That's all he had, And he decides, I'm going to go to the guy and I'm going to ask him. He's not Jewish, fine. So I'll throw some fire in. It's not hard, by the way, to get away. I throw a piece of wood into the fire. It's no longer Bishalakum. Period. Okay, it's not hard to get rid of Bishalakum. Fine. So he talks to the guy and says, so tell me, what do you put in? So he gives him the whole list. And everything is kosher. And he says, okay. He's thinking to himself, okay, I'm watching it. There's nothing there. He says, okay, I'm ready. Then the guy says, because he said, you put pork. No, pork. Okay, so he said, then he said, I have to tell you, it's about to eat the stuff. He said, I have to tell you one thing. He said, in order, you had to grease the pan, what's it called? Season the pan. He said, I remember using pork for that. Good. He said, thanks a lot. You got to get this up. The point is, if you don't know what to ask, all you have is chachma. You don't have bina. The whole thing of kashrut, the whole thing of Torah is bina. You have to have chachma. I have to learn the Torah. I have to be fluent in it. But it's not enough just to have fluency. It's not enough just to know the facts. I have to be able to say fact 1 with fact 2, which is why if you go to Rev Moshe Feinstein and you look at any one of his shuvas, I'm going to use a story from Rav Schechter, where he was talking to the convention, and he said to us, he was a young guy, he was learning with his chavrusa, he wasn't yet Rav Schechter. He wasn't a Baki B'Shas. And he decided he's going to look at Rav Moshe's. They were learning an Indian matter of Jewish law, and they said, okay, let's go to Rav Moshe, let's see what his question was. They open up, they see the question. Close the book. They spent a week, I believe it was a week, exploring the different matters according to what they had, and they decided what the halacha was. Now they open the book. And they said, let's see if Rav Moshe, let's see if we agree with Rav Moshe. They didn't say that he agrees with us, but we agree with them. They open the book, and the first thing Rav Moshe quotes is the Gemara in Tzavachim. Tzavachim? We're about Messiah. What are you doing with Tzavachim? And they realized they were all wrong. Because he quoted something that was totally different, starting from a different place that they never even thought of. They never heard of it. Again, that's the ability of Bina. I have to know where to look. The Chachma, I have to have that. But I also have to know there's a lot of things going on here. It's not just, here's my Shaila and I can go with it. Okay? That's why I'm saying that's a very important part. But then you have to have Das, the last thing. What is Das? How does Rashi translate Das? Or Da'at, for those who speak Hebrew that way. No. What?
To know.
No, he says Ruach HaKodesh. Yep. He says Ruach
Well,
what?
call it, we're doing that now. Das Torah is when you ask a shaila of a Rav, right? So,
Right.
So you're assuming that Rav has that Das, or has more Das than you would. So it's a higher level.
Okay. Right. But what I'm saying is I hear that. And you're right. When you call for quote unquote Das Torah, which is a term that some people really disdain, have a disdain for that term Das Torah, because it's taken out of
context.
It is given a lot of power when it. In other words, whose Das Torah do you go to?
Right.
And who's Das Torah? We don't have Rav Moshe anymore. And the Gedolim are not. There's a couple of Gedolim out there, and that's Das Torah, if you will. You're not going to go. But what is Das Torah anyway? I mean, really, in order to understand the Shaila, and this was what Rav Soloveitchik was all about, actually. When people would call him up with Shailas, he didn't like you to call him. He wasn't interested. For a very simple reason. He said, I gave you smicha. You don't have to call me. That means you have the ability to do the research. You have the ability to understand what the halacha is. You have the ability, and if you're going to forfeit that, so you don't need smicha anymore. Go be something else. He was very harsh that way. Rev Moshe wasn't that harsh. Where Rev Moshe, I wasn't there obviously.
Wait,
Rev Moshe Feinstein?
no, who was the first person who you said?
Rev Soloveitchik.
Oh, so, okay.
Rev Soloveitchik. Rev Moshe had a different thing though. Supposedly, when he had smicha students, they would be sitting in his office, whatever it was. He would get a shaila. He would say, "I'll call you back." He'd put on speaker, I guess. Whatever. If it wasn't sensitive, he would put on speaker, whatever it was. And he would say, "I'll call you back." Boom. He would hang it up. He would say to the boys, "No. What do you ask? What do you answer?" And of course, they would all try to say, "Well, how can I answer in front of the Rebbe?" And they would say, "Answer." Hear what you say, and they would. That's how he would train them. So again, so they could go out, because the point is, I shouldn't have to call you to find out if somebody asks me, should I put the film on because I didn't daven or whatever the shaila is. Do I have to call you for that? If you have to life and death situation, maybe. But the ultimate question is, who does Rev first call? I realized to call Rev first. So who does he call? Who's his Mara? And if he doesn't have one anymore, so what do you do? So what becomes Das Torah? That's what I'm saying. People, I hear the term Das Torah. I'm not sure how people want to apply Das Torah, but it's also a different question. In Rashi, that's what I really want to get to. Just in looking at Rashi, Rashi's saying Das Da'at, as compared to Chacham and Bina, is, like I said, Ruach HaKodesh, which is you're inspired, if you will, to have the right answer. Now this is basically, what?
Sorry, where's Rashi? What kind?
It's Pitzalo. Okay. That's the context?
I got the context.
Okay. So what really going on there is, it's, if you ever had this feeling that the light bulb went off, on, and you say, of course, that's Ruach HaKodesh. Okay, that's as close as you're going to get to Das, I think, that we can imagine. Okay, so now I have what?
No.
Oh,
Yeah, Rabbi Gluckin kind of mentioned that. The moment where you see
right.
the big picture.
Right.
Right, and that's when Esau cried, when he realized that he blew his chance.
Correct.
So.
Or in Laurie's first story that I got to hear from her, where the guy was in the forest and the lightning hit and he saw it. That's Ruach HaKodesh. You see everything in front of you. What you're going to do with that is up to you. But you see everything. Suddenly you have a clarity. And again, by the way, you asked originally, how do we know which midrash is right? What, you will. If you learn midrashim, not like we do, by taking a little midrash says.
Right.
I love little midrash says, by the way. I love all these English things. They're great. But they make you so lazy. They do. That's the only thing I have against them. I use Art Scroll, I'm ashamed to say, because it's easy. And that's why when my son wants to come home, when we used to go to Abu Safan, he used to pull the Art Scroll. He said, "No, that's for me. You get the real book. You get the real book." And he said, "But Abba," I said, "There's no but Abba here. I'm not paying for you to do English. Learn the right way. When you get to my age, take the other stuff." When Rabbi Lindau had when his kids wanted to buy a Mishnah Brora or anything, and they wanted to get with the vowels, he said, "No, without the vowels. Learn it the right way. Not everything has vowels. Most of it doesn't. If you go to the regular books, you have to learn how to learn. And that when you do that, by the way, and you get used to that, now you get a sensitivity to the language, towards the nuance of what's going on. And as again, if you look at Meforshim, the more you look at, and I'm sure you can verify what I'm saying. I think anybody who does Meforshim can verify. The more we learn that Meforsh, that Rav, and we get to know their methodology, the more we appreciate what they're saying, and the more we can understand the depth of where they're going. As compared to if I just do what most people like to do. They want to get a Devar Torah, so they open up, oh, I have a nice thing here. And again, they don't think twice about what's really going on. They just say, the Dazakanim says, because it's always nice to quote somebody that nobody reads. It's really cool when you do that. The Orach Chaim says, oh, the Orach Chaim, what did he really say? I don't know, but he said something. Because they don't understand what's going on. They don't know why he's saying what he's saying. Because they never read the introduction in Bereshis, where he says what I'm trying to do. Or why does the Ramban constantly attack Ibn Ezra? And not Rashi. And not, well, he does attack the Rambam. No, I'm saying, but it's not with the same. Ibn Ezra, he rips down. Rashi says, Rashi is Rashi. Even the Rambam, okay, once in a while he says, we shouldn't listen to him. But Ibn Ezra, he really rips into. And you're asking why. Again, if you go to his introduction, he explains what he's doing. I'll leave you to an introduction. Okay? Introductions are the most important thing sometimes because you know where they're going. If you read Hirsch, again, his introductions. If you read Arshko, by the way, and you find out what they're saying, and they tell you, I'm not going to, certainly when it comes to Song of Songs, or when it comes to Kehelis, we are not being literal. Period. And these are the reasons we won't be literal. And you read their big introduction. Their introductions are, by the way, I'm a very big fan of their introductions, because they really do a nice job of it. But they give you a lot of background. But if you don't understand what they're doing, you're going to look and say, they don't know how to translate. Well, they already told you they're not going to. So that's what I'm saying. You have to have that. But that part of enlightenment, when you're getting that enlightenment, that part of that light when goes on, that's Ruach HaKodesh, that's Das. And if I can put all those three things together, so then I can start to appreciate what is really being done and why Hashem wrote down the stories that Hashem chose to write down, and all these different stories that are there, and why it's written in the way it's written, sometimes clearly condemning the person in the story, David HaMelech with Bathsheba, and yet the rabbis say whoever says he committed adultery is an apokar. Oh, Rav Meir, I believe, is the one who says that. Whoever says that he committed adultery is an apokaris. So how do you understand the story? What are we supposed to understand? And so on and so forth. So we really have to be able to look at all these stories from that concept of Chachma, Bin and Da. Yes, I have to know the story. And by the way, you must know the storyline. If you don't know the storyline, you don't know what's going on. And that was another problem that people are having. They got so stuck on the Midrashim that they forgot the storyline. And then when they read the storyline, how many people know the story of, I'll give you an example, Avram destroying the idols of Terach. Everybody knows it. Great. So I remember I was in Yeshiva or Sameach, and it was one of the outreach programs they were doing, and they brought everybody in. And the rabbi is giving his thing, and he's teaching the story of Avram and so on and so forth. And he says to everybody, okay, we're at the point. You ready? Find it. Find that story in the text. Doesn't appear. Nowhere. It's imagined in the text. I mean, it's pointed to, if you will, under the text. It's the subtext, but it's not there. And everybody's so disappointed. They learned that story in Hebrew school. It must be there. And it wasn't. It was so disappointing, really. And yet it was eye-opening to the people, because they were saying, what else did you lie about? And then they had to come and they had to, show them where everything was coming from. And again, what were they doing? They were awakening them to say, get out of your sleep. There's pshat here, there's drash, there's storyline, there's a lot of things going on. You have to find it. And the only way you're going to do it is to open the books. It's the only way you're going to do anything. You can't listen to stories, you can't listen to speeches, you have to open the books. You have to see what they're saying. You have to explore the story, and you can't run through it. Everybody ever try to read Samuel? I say Samuel instead of Shmuel because I'm going to English. I don't know how Goyim understand our Torah. I really don't. I have no idea. I always say it to them. I don't know how you understand it. I read Shmuel, and Samuel, and I had to go to the Hebrew to figure out what was going on. It made no sense to me. I was saying, how do you understand this? And they was, well, it is what it is. I said, no. I remember I learned, the first time I learned the first chapter of Joshua with the class I was doing. I asked them on the first 5 psukim 40 questions. And they all looked at me dumbfounded. So, well, I thought you said you learned the story. Let's go. They didn't know what to do with it. Because I was using the Hebrew, I was using the whole thing. They didn't learn it because they never thought about it. They don't learn like that. But we need to. That's why it says in Pirkei Avot, Da Malashav Apikoros. I have to know what to answer to Apikoros. Who's the Apikoros? Me. I'm not worried about the other people, by the way. I'm worried about me. I have to know what to answer. I have to know that there is an answer. And even if I don't know the answer right now, I have to know that I won't die from the question too. There's an answer. I just don't know it yet. I have to keep studying. And I have to talk about it. And I have to go back and forth with it. I can't let it go. There's an old story that, I forget who it was, two father, son, and one of the big rebbeim. And I think it was one of the people who would turn into one of the giants. But his father was already a giant. And there was a shiloh that they had. And so the son went to sleep that night. The father didn't. And do you know who it was? A chasam sof or something like that. And so what happens is, the father is up the whole night figuring out what's going on. He's going back and forth, not eating, not doing anything. And he finally comes to his son. I figured it out. He said, Dad, what are you talking about? The Shaila. I said, yeah, I was going to work on today. He said, you mean you could sleep? You could eat? How could you do that? You'll be nothing. You'll never be anything. Of course, he turns into whatever leader he was. But the point is, he said, how can you go to sleep when you have such a shaila? You're dealing with the Jewish people. You're dealing with the Torah. And he couldn't get it. He couldn't understand it. We, Baruch Hashem, never. We all go to sleep. When we have a Shah, we all, okay. By the way, it's good. You know why it's good to go to sleep?
So that you can think more clearly.
Right, when you go to sleep, your mind relaxes, and sometimes you wake up with the answer. Now, when the Gemara says, by the way, depending on what you're dreaming, that can have a bad effect on you. So, be careful. Don't tell your dreams out. But that's a big thing. Sometimes you have to relax. Sometimes you have to walk away from the question. But the point, besides that story, is we have to keep delving into, and we never can stop. Again, you may never find out the answer, by the way. It may take it may take generations. Again, Rabbi Lindau gave a drasha a couple of years ago about when you were trying to show all the advancements, and you said there was a rabbi who explained some atomic power, but he didn't know what he was seeing. And he said, there's something, I don't know what it is, I forget what it was, but it would end up being atomic power. And you said 100 years before atomic power was discovered. But he saw it from the Torah, but he didn't know what it was. Again, this comes from the Kasha, I'm not going to die from the question, but he understood something was there. With all our chukim, we know there's a reason for them. It's not that God just wants to torture us. There's a reason. We don't know it. And when we do know it, so the nations will look at us and say, what a brilliant nation they are. That's what it means. The nations will look and say, we were brilliant because we were doing that. Not that we're doing it because God said it. But they're going to see us as, such a smart nation. Okay. So now, okay, I have to really wrap this up quick. Okay. So now, the question, I'm going to get to the very last part of this. There's 2 types of ways to learn. Okay. There's people like to multitask, which means when I'm learning, I put on my, I do that. Okay. I can, what's it called? crochet, or better still, when kids are on the computer and they're listening to music. I only learn when I have music on, otherwise I don't learn well, and so on and so forth. Well, I hate to say it, but the evidence just isn't there. The only way to learn, if you go to this, it's on the web. The science of single tasking, how focus unlocks extreme productivity. Everybody's agreeing on one thing. Multitasking, it does not work, no matter who you are, for learning purposes. You have to be single task. And what happens is, if you look at the brain, so when I multitask, the whole brain is lit up, but it's very shallow. It's very shallow. When I single task, when I learn Be'in, if you will, specifically, then it goes deep into the brain. And it's going to stay there. So we have this in Pirkei Avot, by the way, a beautiful thing from Pirkei Avot. And it says, everybody knows it, just have to find it. Here it is. It says, Rabbi Eliezer ben Azar said, one whose wisdom is greater than his deeds, to what is he comparable? To a tree with many branches and few roots. That's your multitasking. Few roots. It's a lot of branches up there. Few roots. Comes a storm and uproots it. It turns it on its face. What's going to happen if I multitask while I'm learning everything, I'm doing everything, boom, 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 and I'm listening to all these things? I'll get my Daf Yomi done, but I didn't do much. It's going to be gone. And again, those who've learned Daf Yomi know that sometimes 5 minutes from then you say, what did I read? Okay? And by the way, that's for every college student. That's for every student. How many times have we read something and then we don't know what we read? The question is, how many of us are going to go back and say it again? That's really the question. But that's, and then it says, it says, but one whose deeds are greater than his wisdom, to what is he compared? To a tree with many roots and few branches, where all the storms in the world cannot budge from its place. So again, if I learn Be'in, and I incorporate that, by the way, it's not just enough to learn something. I have to put it into practice. That's Torah. Torah is not, it says in Pirkei Avot, what is more important? What's more important, the learning or the doing? And what do we say? Doing. The doing. Why? Because the doing reinforces what you learned. I have to learn clearly, but if I don't do it, I've accomplished nothing. Which is why it says in Igeres Ramban, and I'm going to have to end on this. In Igeres Ramban, it says that if you, whatever you learn, the letter from I'm using Hebrew. The letter that the Ramban wrote to his child. He said, if you, whatever you learn, make sure that you find some way to incorporate it into your life. Never let it just be, I learned something, and then let it go. Let it go. You can't do that. Okay, you have to do something with it. And in that case, I encourage everybody. There's a lot of beautiful stuff out there. Maybe Pirkei Avot, which I think personally is one of the more beautiful form out there. It has so much to offer to us. If we just take a Mishnah a day and we put time into it with the commentaries and think about it and incorporate that into our lives, we would have done something. When we learn Chumash, same thing. We have to put it in. We have to really dedicate time to it. It can't just be, when I have time, I'll do it. Make a time. Make a time. Learn Torah. Make Torah every day. You have to learn it. It's who we are. It's the life and length of our days. And if we're going to say, tomorrow I'll get to it, or when I have time, Shabbos. No, it doesn't work. It's a bunch of baloney. Let's admit it to ourselves already. It only works if we do it every day. And in Mr. Shem we will. So now we have prizes on the board. Okay, so you have to, by the way, the first prize is going to be 1 free night stay in a room at the Midrash Torah Center, Hospitality Suite. Recipient must contact Laurie Barron at least 72 hours in advance, and expires 1 year from the date below, which, it's another from today. Okay. And the other one is one complimentary. So we have two. We're giving 4 gifts away. One complimentary admission to a Midwest Torah Center event. Must present certificate time event. Redeem it for one full price adult. But the value should not exceed $10. And expires 1 year from the date below. I want to thank Lori for drawing these things up. We have to do it. We're going to do a very quick game. This is the Jeopardy. What do you call it? Lightning round. Okay. Want to get that door, please? There you go.
Oh.
All right, Alex.
Okay. Ready? Okay. The book that has all of our, many of our morals. What? Okay, which one do you want? You'll pass that one. What? Staff should not answer. Oh, staff should not answer. Okay. Let's try this again.
Torah was actually the right answer. Pirkei Avos has the ethics.
No. Oh, okay.
Isn't that moral?
The moral ethics. So the moral ethics. Yeah. Okay. Let me try this. Oh, this one you should get. This one you should get. How many commandments are in the 10 commandments?
You need to have the questions straight before you ask them. He's looking at me.
630 commandments.
What was the question?
No, that.
What is how many commandments are in the Torah?
There you go. There you go. Put a name there. Okay. Okay.
What he was saying here, this is the Vina part.
There you go. Okay. What? Oh, Bina, Chachma, and Da'at.
Chabad. What is Chabad?
Okay. There you go. Oh, your staff.
Learning. Three types of learning.
What else? Okay. Okay, we're back to the Midwest Torah Center of. Is there any other people can get? Okay. Center of events. Right. This is for the $10 value. Okay. What?
You are not a bed and breakfast.
Okay. Yes.
Best Western.
Avram destroyed the idols.
Who is Terah? Huh?
No.
You know, I don't like your answers. We need more clear answers so we know what the question is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that wasn't good. Right. Okay.
You are not Alex Trebek.
I'm so no. Alice Trebek has the drop board here. Okay, we'll have to stop here.
No more questions?
No more time. I'm out of time.